Hello guys, I am Vaishali Kikan and we are discussing chemistry. Today in this chapter, we are going to talk about the gas states and the gas laws. To understand the gaseous state of matter, we are going to start our discussion with the three states of matter. So let's start our discussion with the states of matter, then we will have a detailed analysis of the gaseous state of matter. So there are three states of matter. First state is solid, second is liquid, and the last is gaseous state, which is our utmost important state for this subject. Right, then coming to the solid. How the solid are characterized? Solid will be having very strong force of attraction between the various entities. Now these entities here in the solid can be molecules or it can be a single atom as well. So in the various entities, I am calling atom or molecule as an entity. So there is a very strong force of attraction between the entities. Now if I talk about the liquid state will be having weaker attractive force between the entities. Thus I can say they are farther apart than the solids. In the gaseous state, we have very weak attractive force between the entities, and based upon these attractive force between the entity, I can classify the difference between the solid, liquid and gas. Now let's talk about the solid in detail. Solid are the substances that are having the definite shape and volume. Its shape would remain same if you put it anywhere in the environment. If you put in one container, second container, third container, its shape would be same. If it is of square shape, it will remain same in any of the container. Its volume will also remain same. Right? Volume is not going to change if you put it in any container. It is virtually incompressible because the entities are having very strong attractive force. It is very difficult to compress the solid. So it is virtually incompressible. It does not flow easily, again due to the strong attractive force between the entities. Coming to the liquid state. Liquid state has the weaker attractive force between entities, right? So they take the shape of the container, but their volume would be same. If it is 1 liter, the volume would be same if you put in any other beaker. In first beaker it's 1 liter, in the second beaker also the volume would be 1 liter. But the shape will vary. If this is the beaker of square shape, the liquid will take the square shape. If this beaker is of triangular shape, this liquid will take the triangular shape. So the shape will depend upon the type of container. So it takes the shape of the container but will be having definite volume. It is slightly compressible because it is having weaker attractive forces than in the entities. Right. So now coming to the last case of the liquid, so it flows readily. Again due to the weaker attractive forces. Coming to the gaseous state. The gaseous state takes the shape and even the volume of the container. If the volume of this container is 2 liter, this volume of this container is 5 liters. So if I am putting the same number of moles of gas in this container and this container, both of the container will be filled. So the gas is having very weak attractive forces between the entity, due to which it fill up the container in which it is present, right? The next case would be it is highly compressible because of the weak attractive force, and there is a tendency to compress the gases. It flows readily again due to the presence of weak attractive forces. Now coming to the kinetic molecular theory. Kinetic molecular theory was given by the Scottish scientist which was Robert Brown. Right, his span was 1773 to 1858. He gave a term which is known as a Brownian motion on the basis of upon his name. So Robert Brown gave the concept of Brownian motion. And now what is the Brownian motion? According to the Brownian motion, we have the random movement of the microscopic particles suspended in liquid or gas. So when you see gas, you see the dust particles in the gas. These dust particles are having the random motion. So you must have seen numerous times that the dust particles are having the random motion in the gas. When you see it in sunlight, it is visible. Even in the liquid also, the microscopic particles will be having the random motion. Right, so this is called the Brownian motion. Coming to the kinetic molecular theory. What is the kinetic molecular theory? It is the idea that all substances are composed of entities that are in contact and having the random motion. So all of the compounds are having entities, atom, molecule, ion, all of these are called as an entity, and these are having the random motion. Coming to the kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is the energy possessed by the moving object. If I'm moving, my movement is possessing a kinetic energy. So energy possessed by a moving body is the kinetic energy. Now coming to the question that how entities move. So based upon the movement of the entities, we know from the kinetic molecular theory, I know that the entities are having the random motion. Now what kind of motion the entities can have? Entities can have the translational motion, rotational motion, or the vibrational motion, right? So the translational motion is the movement of the entity through space along a linear path, right? So whenever the entities are moving in the straight line path or the linear path, it is known as the translation motion. Translational motion is present in gaseous state and the liquid states only. It is not present in the solid state. Coming to the rotational motion. Rotational motion is the spinning of the entity in place, right? When the entity is spinning it at a single place, so that is called as the rotational motion. So it is again present in the gaseous and the liquid state. It is not present in the solid state. It is very limited in the solid state, right? So now coming to the vibrational motion. This is the third kind of motion that we have, vibrational motion, which is the back and forth vibration of entities. Entities are just moving back and forth. So it is present in all of the three states, gaseous, liquid, and the solid states. Now coming to the types of motion, the differentiation between the solid, liquid, and gas based upon this table. The type of motion, the solid will exhibit only the vibrational motion, the liquid will exhibit vibrational, rotational, as well as the translational motion. The gaseous state will also exhibit vibrational, rotational, and the translational motion. Now coming to the attraction strength. So the attraction strength in the solid is the strongest, in liquid it is intermediate, in the gases it is weakest. Now the organization of the entities. The organization of the entities in the solid is highly organized. The entities in the solid are highly organized. If I talk about liquid, liquid will be having the intermediate level of organization. The gaseous states are least organized. Coming to the next term, which is called as the pressure. Pressure. What is the pressure? Pressure is the force per unit area. Right? Pressure is again a physical property of the gas. So the gas can be differentiated based upon the various pressures. So if I increase the area, the pressure is going to decrease. Why? Because pressure is force upon area. If area is increased, because it is in reciprocal, so pressure is going to decrease. If I talk about the relation of force and pressure, if you increase force, the pressure is going to increase. So the SI unit of pressure is Pascal, and 1 Pascal is represented as 1 Newton per meter square. Right, now coming to the measurement of the atmospheric pressure. How to measure the atmospheric pressure? For that, we should first understand what is the atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure is the force per unit area exerted by the air on all objects. So we have various objects and we are having the various pressure exerted by the atmosphere on all objects. So here, if I am an object, the atmosphere is exerting, the environment surrounding me is exerting some pressure on me. So this pressure that is experienced by me is the atmospheric pressure of this place, right? So now coming to the standard pressure. Standard pressure is 101.325 kilopascal. So 101.325 kilopascal is approximated as 101 kilopascal. Right, now standard temperature and pressure. What is the standard temperature and pressure, which it is also represented as STP? Whenever a question comes on the standard temperature and pressure, you have to take the temperature as 0 degrees Celsius and pressure as 101.325 kilopascal. Coming to the standard ambient temperature and pressure. Now because 0 degrees Celsius is not present in a lot of experimental condition, we are mostly talking about standard ambient temperature and pressure. So you must know the temperature and the pressure condition for standard ambient temperature and pressure, which is SATP. So the temperature is 25 degrees Celsius and pressure is 100 kilopascal at SATP. Now coming to the concept where we are understanding how to measure the atmospheric pressure. The atmospheric pressure measurement was given by a scientist, Evangelista Torricelli. Right, so his lifespan was 1608 to 1674. He gave the method of measuring the atmospheric pressure. So how to measure the atmospheric pressure? We are taking a glass tube similar to the extremely long test tube. We are taking a test tube kind of glass tube, and then in this glass tube we are filling the mercury. So mercury is in the liquid state. We are filling this glass tube with the mercury, and then we are inverting it. Where we are inverting it? We are submerging the open end of this glass tube in the disc, which again contains the more mercury. I have a disc. In this disc I have mercury. I have a glass tube. In this glass tube I have mercury. This is, let's suppose, the open end, and now I am submerging this in the bowl. So here also we have the mercury. So now what will happen? So because here this mercury is now having the experience by the gravitational force. It is experienced now by the gravitational force. Gravitational force is now pulling this mercury in the downward direction. So it is pulled down by the gravitational force. Now this, all of the mercury which is present here will not go in this bowl, right? So what will happen in this disc, which is already containing mercury, all of the mercury is not moving when we have submerged it. Why? Now all of the mercury is not run out of the tube due to the pressure on the mercury on the disc pushing against, right? So here, if you, let's understand. So here we have the disc, we have in this mercury. Now in this also, in this glass tube also we have mercury. Now when I put it upside down, the mercury will flow down. When the mercury is flowing down, what will happen? So gravitational force is pulling it down, but this mercury which was present in the disc is exerting an upward force on the mercury which is in the glass tube, and thus it is stopping it from coming down. So when the mercury is going down, at the upside we have created a vacuum, right? So this mercury which was in the disc was experiencing a atmospheric pressure, and here, because upside, let's suppose this much vacuum is created, which is the blue part. So this blue part is the vacuum. Vacuum, we know it's not exerting any pressure on the mercury which is inside this glass tube, right? So we are not having all of the mercury running out of the tube due to the pressure on the mercury on the disc tube, which is pushing it in the upside direction. So in the tube the mercury is pushed in the upside direction by the mercury in the disc. So we have at the top of the tube we have the vacuum condition, which is not exerting any downward pressure on the mercury in the glass tube, right? So now this is how you can measure. So if you increase the atmospheric pressure, so this level of the mercury will increase, because when you put more pressure on the mercury on the disc, so this mercury will exert more pressure on the mercury in the glass tube, right? So in this manner, this glass tube mercury will rise if you increase the atmospheric pressure. This is how we measure the atmospheric pressure. So now coming to the various units of the pressure. So first is the Pascal, which is represented in the symbol as PA, and now conversion in the definition. 1 Pascal is 1 Newton per meter square. Now coming to the second unit, which is the millimeter mercury, which is represented as mmHg symbol. So 760 mmHg is equal to 1 atmosphere is equal to 101.325 kilopascal. The third unit is torr, which is again represented as torr only, and 1 torr is 1 mmHg. The fourth unit is atmosphere, which is represented as ATM, and 1 atmosphere is 101.325 kilopascal, that we had already understood. Now the fourth unit is pound per square inch, which is represented as PSI in the symbol, and 1 PSI is 6895 Pascal. Right? Now coming to the question based upon the conversion of the units. So the average atmospheric pressure on the Mars is 0.60 kilopascal. What is the value in mmHg? So first of all, we have to understand the relation between kilopascal and mmHg, because we are given the pressure in the kilopascal and we have to convert it into mmHg. So the relation between kilopascal and mmHg, it is given over here. 760 mmHg is equal to 101.325 kilopascal. Now from here we can find out a fraction, the unit which you want in the numerator. So we are converting now this in a fraction in which the unit I want would be in the numerator. What I want, the unit in mmHg. So mmHg would be in numerator. In the denominator we will be having 101.325 kilopascal. So the fraction would be 760 mmHg divided by 101.325 kilopascal. Now we have to multiply the given value by the conversion factor. What is the given value in the kilopascal? 0.60. When you multiply 0.60 kilopascal with the conversion factor 760 mmHg divided by 101.325 kilopascal, you are going to get the 4.5 mmHg. So this is how you are going to get the conversion in mmHg from kilopascal. Coming to the Charles law. What is the Charles law now? Charles law gives us the relation between the volume and the temperature. So if I have a gas and I want to find out the relation between the volume and the temperature, I can use the Charles law. According to the Charles law, the volume of the gas is directly proportional to its temperature in Kelvin. Right, so I have to deal with the temperature in Kelvin only. If it is in degrees Celsius, first of all you have to convert this temperature in Kelvin. So first of all you are converting the temperature in Kelvin, then you are seeing how the volume is changing according to the temperature. So Charles found out that the volume of the gas is directly proportional to its temperature in Kelvin, provided there are conditions that the pressure and the amount of gas remain constant. The number of moles of the gas remains constant, the pressure will remain constant. So the effect of increasing temperature on the volume of the gas can be understood with the help of this data, where we have the temperature in degrees Celsius, temperature in Kelvin, and the volume in ml. Right, so if you see the temperature in degrees Celsius as 0 degrees Celsius, in the Kelvin can be represented at 273 degrees Celsius, so volume in ml is 100 ml. When I increase the temperature to 20 degrees Celsius or 293 Kelvin, the volume will be 107 ml. So this is how, if you increase the temperature, volume is increased. Again, if you increase the temperature to 40, so it is represented as 40 degrees Celsius, 313 Kelvin, and the volume will increase to 115 ml. Now if you again increase the temperature to 80 degrees Celsius, it is represented as 353 Kelvin, the volume you will observe is 129 ml. Right, so now next is the 273 degrees Celsius. Temperature again you increase to 546 Kelvin, so 273 degrees Celsius is represented as 546 Kelvin, and it can be giving the volume 200 ml. Right, so when you increase the temperature, the volume is increasing, and why it is increasing, let's understand the reason. When you increase the temperature, the kinetic energy of the entity will increase, because the temperature will increase, the vibrational motion of the entities, or the other motion, translational, rotational motion of the entities will also increase. So whenever the entities are in motion, its kinetic energy will increase. So temperature increases the kinetic energy. When kinetic energy is increased, there would be more collisions. So when I have more collisions in the entity, so there would be higher collision in the entities. So entities inside the gases and the entities of gas with the container. So entities are colliding with each other as well, and the entities are colliding with the walls of the container as well. So when more entities are colliding with the wall of the container, so the container is tending to expand and the volume is increasing. So now coming to a sample problem based upon it. So the question states a sample of gas is drawn into piston. If the sample occupies 0.255 liter at 25 degrees Celsius, what volume will the gas occupy if it is heated to 80 degrees Celsius? The pressure and amount of gas are kept constant through the process. Right, so when I take the temperature, so temperatures, both of the temperature are given in degrees Celsius. First of all, we are going to convert the temperature T1 and T2 into Kelvin. So temperature into Kelvin, how to convert the temperature into Kelvin? Take the temperature in degrees Celsius, add 273 to it. So T1 is equal to small t1 plus 273. Capital T1 is the temperature in Kelvin, small t1 is the temperature in degrees Celsius. So capital T1 would be 25 plus 273, which is 298 Kelvin. Capital T2 would be small t2 plus 273, which is 80 plus 273, which is 353 Kelvin. Now according to the Charles law, we know V1 upon T1 is equal to V2 upon T2, right? Because here I told you the volume of the gas is directly proportional to the temperature. So V is equal to AT, right? Here A is a constant, or I can again represent it as V upon T is equal to A, right? Or V upon T as A, V upon T is a constant. Now if I take it as V1 upon T1 or V2 upon T2, both will be equal to constant. So V1 upon T1 is equal to V2 upon T2 will be equal to A. So from here I can derive V1 upon T1 is equal to V2 upon T2. So this is the condition that we have derived from the Charles law. So we are now using it. So we have to find out V2. I will take T2 this side. So V2 will be equal to V1 T2 upon T1. So what is V1? It is given in the question 0.255 liter, which is multiplied with T2. We had already found out it in Kelvin, which is 353 Kelvin, divided by T1, which is 298 Kelvin. So when you solve it, you will get the volume V2 as 0.300 liter. Right? So I hope you understood this. Coming to the Boyle's law. According to the Boyle's law, volume of the gas is inversely proportional to its pressure when the amount of the gas and the temperature remains constant. So here we are finding out the relation between the volume and the pressure, and what I am doing, I am keeping the amount of gas, the number of moles of the gas, and the temperature to be constant. I am not varying the temperature. So it gives the relation P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2 or PV is equal to K, which is the constant. So this is the Boyle's law. So if I see the pressure versus volume graph, and if I see the 1 by P versus the volume graph. So if I see the pressure versus volume graph, you can see it's the degrading graph. But if I see the 1 by P versus the volume graph, it is a straight line. So I can say there is an inverse relation between the pressure and the volume of the gas, and thus the Boyle's law is proved. So you can do this exercise with the help of the gaseous sample, and then you can observe how the gas volume is related to its pressure. Right? So how we are explaining this kind of behavior, how we can say the pressure and volume are inversely related. If you decrease the size of the container, if you decrease the size of the container, means volume is decreased. So we will be having less space in the container. When I have less space in the container, there will be more collisions. We all know the Brownian motion would be there, the random motion would be there in the entities, and if I have the lesser space, in the lesser space the motion is already there, the collision would be more. So this is how the pressure is increased, right? So now coming to the Gay-Lussac's law. According to the Gay-Lussac's law, the pressure of the gas is directly proportional to its temperature. When you increase the pressure, the temperature is going to increase, or when you increase the temperature, the pressure is going to increase. But we have to assume that the amount of gas or the number of moles of the gas and the volume remains constant. You are not changing the volume of the gas and the number of moles. So P1 upon T1 is equal to P2 upon T2, or I can say PT is equal to constant. So if you increase the temperature, what is actually happening? If you increase the temperature, kinetic energy is increased. We know the kinetic energy is increased because temperature is providing more vibrational motion and more translational rotational motion. Thus kinetic energy is increased. When the kinetic energy is increased, collisions are increased, and when the collisions are increased, pressure is increased, because there would be now more collision between the walls of the container and the entities, right? So based upon this, let's understand a question. A weather balloon is filled with 60 liter hydrogen gas at sea level pressure. What is the sea level pressure? It is also given. You have to use 101.3 kilopascal. It then rises to 900 meter above the Earth's surface. The atmospheric pressure at this altitude is 90.6 kilopascal. What is the volume of the balloon at this altitude? Assume no change in temperature and amount of gas. Right? So temperature and number of moles are constant. So here, which relation you are going to use? You are going to use the Boyle's law. P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2. We know P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2. From here, if you rearrange it, you will get V2 is equal to P1 V1 upon P2. So now here P1 and P2 are given, and the V1 is also given. Let's put it 101.3 kilopascal into 60 liter divided by 90.6 kilopascal. When you would solve it, you will get the V2 as 67.1 liter. Now coming to the next question, which states a sample of gas is stored in a reinforced steel container at minus 115 degrees Celsius at a pressure of 39.9 kilopascal. If pressure reaches 60.8 kilopascal, what is the final temperature? Right, so we first find out this temperature in the Kelvin, because the temperature is given in the degrees Celsius. So T1, capital T1 is equal to T1 plus 273. Now small t1 is minus 115, so capital T1 would be minus 115 plus 273, which is 158 Kelvin. Now here I am going to use the Gay-Lussac's law, according to which I have P1 upon T1 is equal to P2 upon T2. So T2 will be equal to P2 T1 upon P1. Right, so what is P2, which it is given in the question 60.8 kilopascal. T1 is, we have calculated it in Kelvin, 158 Kelvin, and divided by P1, which is 33.9 kilopascal. So this is how we get the temperature as 241 Kelvin. Now we had to find out the temperature in degrees Celsius. We have the temperature in Kelvin. If you find out the temperature in degrees Celsius, it will be capital T2 minus 273. Capital T2 is 241 minus 273. So this is how I get the temperature as minus 32 degrees Celsius. Right, now combined gas law. What are we doing? We are now combining all the three laws that we have. So it is the product of the pressure and the volume of the gas divided by the absolute temperature is a constant as long as the amount of gas is constant. So here we are considering the number of moles of the gas to be constant. The product of pressure and the volume divided by the temperature will remain constant. So P1 V1 upon P1 V1 upon T1 is equal to P2 V2 upon T2, or I can say PV upon T is constant. right? So here what we have considered the Charles law and the Boyle's law and the Gay-Lussac's law. So here what we have considered in this combined gas law, if I take the pressure to be constant, so the pressure is constant, so this P1 will be equal to this P2. So P1 is equal to P2, we can cancel out P1 and P2, so it is giving me V1 upon T1 is equal to V2 upon T2, right? So this is my Charles law. Right, so now coming to the second case where we have the Boyle's law. In the Boyle's law, if I take the constant T, so this constant T1 is equal to T2, so here from this I will get the relation P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2, which is my Boyle's law, P1 V1 is equal to P2 V2. Now in the third case, if I consider the Gay-Lussac's law, in the combined gas equation, what I have to take? I have to take the constant volume. So if I take the volume, constant V1 is equal to V2, this will get cancelled out and I will get P1 upon T1 is equal to P2 upon T2. Right, this is my combined gas law. So Charles law states constant P, Boyle's law states constant temperature, Gay-Lussac's law states constant volume, and we can derive any of the three laws from this combined gas law. Based upon this, we have a question. A sample of CO2 gas occupies a volume of 25 liter. When the pressure is 125 kilopascal and the temperature is 25 degrees Celsius, calculate the volume occupied by the same quantity of CO2 at the standard temperature and pressure. So we have to find out the volume of the carbon dioxide gas. So here we are going to use the combined gas law, P1 V1 upon T1 is equal to P2 V2 upon T2. Here the temperature is given in degrees Celsius. So first of all, I am going to convert the temperature into Kelvin. So 25 plus 273 is equal to 298 Kelvin. Now if I rearrange this combined gas law, what I have to find out? We have to find out V2. All of the other parameters I will take in the right hand side, P1 V1 T2 upon P2 T1. So let's put all of the value. P1 is 125 kilopascal, V1 is 25 liter, temperature 2 is 273 Kelvin, and P2 is 101.3 kilopascal, and the T1 is 298 Kelvin. So in this manner, if you simplify this, the V2 will be coming out to be equal to 28.3 liters. So you have to understand what is the temperature and the pressure at the standard temperature pressure that I had already discussed. Right, at the standard temperature pressure we have 0 degrees Celsius, which is 273 Kelvin, and 101.325 kilopascal. Right, so I hope you understood all of the questions and all of the concepts based upon this chapter, and I hope you are going to meet me soon in the next class. Thank you so much.